Hello everyone, my name is Elton Searcy and I work with Think Big Analytics. Today we're going to go over how to build your first Kylo pipeline from start to end. So basically we're going to start in Nifi, build out all the different processors that we need to build this pipeline, and then we're going to promote that template. We're going to promote that into a Nifi template, and then we're going to import that into Kylo so that we have it as a Kylo template, and then we're going to create a data pipeline off of that. That can be monitored and watched in Kylo. So this is the pipeline that we're going to make. It's very simple. We're listing files on the local Linux file system, checking the file size, then we're going to grab the file if it's more than 0 bytes, and then we're going to upload that file into HDFS in the same directory structure that we found it in. If at any point the pipeline fails, it's going to route to this failure processor, and we'll be able to track that in Nifi and see that the pipeline had failed. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start this up. So the first processor that we're going to want is going to be list files, or list file. What this processor does is it allows you to look at a local Linux file system and download any newly dropped files that have landed in that directory structure that you give it. And here we're going to set our directory structure to be var/dropzone/ upload to HDFS. And then the file filter, we're going to look for any files that land in that directory structure. This is a regex filter. It's saying basically match anything dot anything. Recurse subdirectory is true. Input directory locations local. It's on the local file system. No path filter. Okay, looks good. Now, the next processor we're going to want is route on attribute. And we're going to name this check file size. And we're going to do fetch file. And then upload to HDFS. Oops. Put HDFS. And then on the side here, to catch errors, we're going to say log attribute. Alright. So with all 4 of our processors or all 5 of our processors that we intend to use here laid out, before we can start connecting them to one another, we need to go into check file size processor and make one edit to this so that it has more than one output route. As you can see right now, if we try to connect this processor to any other processor, the only relationship we have is unmatched. So we need to add a relationship that says file.size to number. This is Nifi's expressing language to cast this string into a number, and then we're going to say GT, which stands for greater than 0. So what this is saying is we're creating a new route, and its name is valid, where our flow file is going to go down the valid route only if this right here evaluates to be true. And GT0 is a Boolean response because the route on attribute processor expects that any expression to put in here to resolve to be a Boolean of some kind. So now we know we have valid and we have unmatched. So let's go ahead and do list files. We'll connect that to the check file size with route on success. Then check file size, we will route unmatched to our failure. And then we'll go ahead and change the name of this processor to be pipeline failed. We'll auto terminate that on success as well. And then under check file size, we're going to route the valid relationship into fetch file, and then we're going to route fetch file into put HDFS on success, and then on fetch file we're going to route all the failure cases, which is permission denied, file not found, or just generic failure error. We're going to route all those into pipeline failed, and then it's important that we go back and rename this relationship to be failure. It's important to name this failure because in Kylo, the way Kylo detects pipeline failures is by looking at the different processors' provenance and seeing what relationship or what route the flow file went down. If the flow file goes through any routes or any queues with the name failure, Kylo will flag the pipeline as having failed. So it's a good rule of thumb to just always rename these relationships. And then the last processor we have to connect is failure from upload to HDFS, or put HDFS. Now in this put HDFS processor, there's a couple different properties we want to set up. Directory, where in HDFS we're putting our file. We're going to use the original file path that, or the original file path where we found our data file. And that's going to be ABSLUTE path. That would just be absolute path. The reason I know that it's absolute path, and I'll show you here right now, is that once you have a flow file queued up, you can do list queue, and then click on this little icon on the left, and then in attributes, these are all the attributes that are being passed along with the individual flow file. In our case, absolute path refers to the location or the directory in which our file was found. And then at the bottom here we have file name. So if you put both those together, you'll get the original Linux file. Now with that, we need to auto-terminate this pipeline. Oh, sorry, just on success. And then one other configuration that we need to do for this processor, there are two attributes that you need to update for any HDFS processors in Nifi that are connected to a Hadoop cluster or using Kylo. The additional class path and the Hadoop configuration resources. Without those two attributes, your pipeline won't, or your processor won't know how to even connect to HDFS. And you can find the values for these attributes by looking in standard ingest. I'll just go ahead and go to it right now. So watch this breadcrumb down here at the bottom. We're going to go to Nifi flow, back to the root directory, and then go into reusable templates. And then we're going to go into standard ingest. And this is what the template for standard ingest looks like. I added these, so you might not see these orange boxes in yours. But this is what the template for standard ingest looks like. If you look at the upload to HDFS processor in there, you can actually get the Hadoop configuration resources streamed from that. And so we'll just go ahead and copy that. And by default, this is a Cloudera sandbox. By default with Cloudera, the configuration files are put in etc Hadoop conf core site. So if you're able to remember that, you can type this out and paste it yourself. It's just core site and HDFS site XML. Okay. So now that we have that resource string, we're going to go back into our pipeline in workspace, upload to HDFS example, and now back to where we were, put HDFS, we're going to configure and just put those Hadoop resources in there. And that should be good. So one final thing to do now before we try to turn this into a Kylo pipeline is just to make sure that it runs. Let's go ahead and process it down. Looks like that was valid, so the file size not only cast it to an integer correctly, but also is greater than 0. And we'll start this and download our file. We can see our file is 139 megabytes, and then we'll put the file in HDFS. Now, in this case, our pipeline failed because I already ran the pipeline once, and so our file already exists in HDFS. To get around this conflict resolution strategy, instead of saying fail, we're going to say replace. So if the file already exists there, we're going to replace the existing file. Apply. And now we're going to go ahead and clear this queue, empty queue. And then to get our pipeline to re-trigger, this list files processor acts a little differently than you might be used to. You need to stop the processor, go to view state, and then clear state. The reason you need to do that is because this processor keeps track of all the files in the local directory that it's watching, as well as the timestamps on all those files. So when the processor executes over and over again, it's only going to send out flow files for files who have not been added to that state tracker that this list file processor has, and it'll only ever process files that land in our new. If you have the same file in the directory called sample.csv like I do, and you run this once, and then you try to run it again, you won't get any new flow file because the file in your directory is not new. You can either land a new file, touch the file that you have, or you can clear the state of this processor, and that'll basically get you another flow file. So we're going to go start now. That gave us our flow file. It went all the way through, and now it's down here at the bottom because these are all on play. And now we're going to go ahead and hit start. When this process icon finishes, it'll say that this processor is finished executing, and it's finished. We have no failures, so it looks like the pipeline finished successfully. We can go ahead and turn this into a Kylo template now. So to do that, first we need to turn it into a Nifi template. You're going to open up this operator tab here on the left and say create template. That's what this little icon here is. We're going to name this move file to HDFS. That's just what we're going to name the pipeline, or that's what we're going to name this Nifi template. And so with that done, actually there's one other thing we need to do. Under fetch file, go ahead and hit stop on fetch file and then hit configure, and then under completion strategy say delete file and then hit OK. And then hit apply. So we can start that up again. Okay, so that'll make it so that it will delete the files in the local Linux file system each time. So it'll basically do cleanup at the same time. Okay, so now let's turn this into a Nifi template. If you already turned it into one, then you need to click on these three bars on the top right and go down to templates and delete the one that's already created. And then create a new one by clicking on this button over here on the left. And now this will be upload to HDFS. This is going to be the name of this. Okay. So now we're going to go into Kylo, and we're going to take that Nifi template and we're going to register it into Kylo as a feed template. So we got upload to HDFS as our Nifi template. No table customization and no data transformations. File filter, input directory. Input directory is the only field that we're going to make editable in this whole pipeline. Yeah, okay. Continue on the next stage. Execution strategy, yeah, we don't need to edit any of these. Okay, continue on the last stage. We're going to select an icon for our pipeline now. We're going to do symbol. And then, so this is the final stage of registering a new template in Kylo. The first step was to select the Nifi template. The second one was to basically just flag any properties that we want users to be able to set when they create a new feed off of this template. Additional properties would be any other processors that you might want to update attributes in, and then there's access control, which we don't worry about that right now because we don't have any different users or groups. And then we have register. So we're going to go ahead and register this register this template. And now that we have that registered as a template, we can go into Feed Manager under Feeds, and we can create a new upload to HDFS feed. So this would be upload from Dropzone. In category test, moving on, upload to HDFS. We're going to keep the same file path. Continue on, say timer. I'm going to execute this every 5 seconds just for the sake of this demo. And then I'll disable it afterwards, so I won't have to worry about that executing over and over again. And now we can create the pipeline. Okay. So now we should see it could have run really fast. Okay, we have our pipeline frozen in here. So now that we've created a feed with our Kylo template and it's named Upload from Dropzone, we can see that in Nifi under the category that you created it in, and I created mine in category test. And then in here, you can see Upload from Dropzone is now in here. It looks like it ran. So if we go into operations, jobs, completed, there it is, upload from Dropzone. And it took 2 seconds to complete. The file that it uploaded was sample.csv. You can see that by going into the job details. This will expose all of the attributes that were set throughout the pipeline so you can see some more context about it. There's step details. If our pipeline had failed, we would see that in here. I'll go ahead and actually create a failure for that so we have an example. So cd upload vi sample bad.csv escape quit. Okay, so now we have sample bad.csv, and that will run through here in just a second. There it is. Upload from Dropzone failed, and that was this minute. In here we can see file size is 0, but we don't know why the pipeline failed necessarily until we look at step details. And here we have check file size, and then pipeline failed because the relationship that we named from check file size to the failed pipeline was named failure. So it's flagged as failure here in the Kylo UI. And we can see that right after the check file size step is when our pipeline failed. So this gives a pretty clear indication as to what the issue might be, and using this you can go back into Nifi, maybe re-execute the file, maybe you need to go into Nifi logs, track it down, or something like that. I'll get more into detail on how to troubleshoot pipelines in a later video. But for right now, this pipeline's complete, and we have a working flow, which will take files from the local directory and upload them into HDFS. Alright, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, again, this was Elton. Seriously, I'll talk to you later.